to kind of understand Pete and why he went into bugs. You know, everybody thinks bugs, not insects. I remember my first indication was he was about 3 or 4 years old, and he would go and sit in the dirt alongside the garage, and he would have a container of some sort, and he would just sit there and pick bugs out and put them in the container. And then he would look at them and turn them around and everything else, but then he would dump them back in, and then he'd move someplace else in the yard and go through doing the whole thing. And then we moved here to Rossford, and then he graduated and went to Northern Michigan University in Marquette. And at that point, this is where his bug phenomenon kind of took off, and he found some classes and a couple profs that were interested in similar things, and then they encouraged him to then go to Washington State University when he graduated from there, and that's where he did his master's in entomology and got his doctorate there. And he actually stayed there for a while teaching and doing some research, and then he got hired by the USDA and moved down to San Diego and was doing some work for them there. They got moved to Gainesville, Florida, working out of the University of Miami. And in this whole time, he was doing work basically for farmers. And they would go places to figure out why certain bugs were attracted to that area, that particular product, and how to help them without actually using chemical pesticides. And Guatemala was having trouble with fruit flies. They were destroying their crops. And what happened is you've got a bud, like a blossom, and when the flower part fell off, the fruit flies had laid their eggs in the inside, so the bud kind of seals up, and the eggs now are in there, and then the fruit forms around it. So it basically was eating the fruit from the inside out. And he developed a method of detecting the egg sac in there and being able to blast it and destroy them before they hatched and save the crop. When he was in Florida, he had started developing a method of copying the pheromone, which is the female sex hormone for the wasps and hornets. And NASA had problems with a hornet's nest that would attach. They were actually swarms of the drones or the males to the side of the shuttle, and they couldn't fly the shuttle off until that was off of it. So he developed this goo ball, which looked like a giant, huge balloon on a stick with this gooey stuff all over it, which was the pheromone, and a long stick. And then he would go out there in his bee, with his little getup, and the pheromone then would attract all the male wasps or hornets to it, and then he could walk off with it and put them someplace else because he could actually release them. Pete was a very humble man, very quiet, loved his family. He had one grandchild that was like the love of his life. He has 2 girls. The oldest one is the one that takes after him, in that, and she is also now working with the USDA in Yakima, which is where he actually started with them, and following in his footsteps. He would tell them to go with what they love, because for Pete, his job was like his hobby. And so when he went to work and he traveled with his job or whatever, he was doing what he loved to do. For us, this is a way for us to let everybody know about somebody who kept it to himself. And we're really proud of him, and we want people to know his contribution to society, and that he was very loved.